It's a debate we ought to have. What the role of government ought to be in our lives, how much Americans ought to be doing for ourselves, how much we ought to be looking elsewhere. And it's a big, broad deal, but should government always be there with a safety net or not? Jack, you say yes.
Well, let me. One of the worst sentences I've heard in a long time came from the president, who I'm going to try very hard to help make president again, in his State of the Union. When President Clinton said, "The age of big government is over," I flinched. What do you mean the age of big government is over? I mean, that was a purely political lie. That was a way of saying, I'm not one of them, I'm not one of those mushy-headed liberals, I'm with you guys. And that, frankly, demeaned his speech. This is a very simple subject, generally. It's very hard to apply. Lincoln made it probably clearer than any of our politicians. He said government, roughly, government is the coming together of people to do for one another collectively what they could not do as well or at all individually. Now, I translated that in my first State of the State message to all the government you need, but only the government you need, and you have to decide that an issue at a time. What Lincoln was saying is, look, if you can do it privately, then you shouldn't use government. Government is not there as the first choice. Government is there as the ultimate choice. If you can educate your children without government, and you can do it fairly, then you don't need common schools. He later said, we need common schools. So he decided that was a place for government. Roads and bridges. Until Eisenhower, you didn't have a federal highway program. Eisenhower decided you need the federal involvement. Jack Kemp had pushed opportunity zones, empowerment zones for years. We did them in New York. I think it's a good use of government. Government tax breaks, government incentives to lure business in. So you decide an issue at a time. Now there are some hairy questions. For a long time in this country, education was purely private. And then we went public, and now some people are moving back toward private. All right, let's talk about that. Healthcare. To what extent should it be public? To what extent private? Let's talk about it. But there is no general virtue in saying little government, big government. What was the Resolution Trust Corporation? The largest bureaucracy ever created to deal with the Savings and Loan Association. I didn't hear a Republican saying that's big government. That was objectionable. It had to be done. So the answer is simple. Let's take it an issue at a time. Should government be in this business or not?